I found messages between my girlfriend and her friend betting on how long she could steal from my company. At dinner, I toasted, 2 bets, you win. Then I showed them the messages. My girlfriend was left frantically apologizing as I pulled out my phone to call the cops. I, 31 male and what you might call a cliché. The guy who poured his life savings, his sweat, and every waking thought into a dream. That dream is a small but growing e-commerce business. We specialize in custom-designed athletic apparel. For the past 3 years, it's been my baby. I've nurtured it from a bedroom operation to a small warehouse with 3 employees. It's not a Fortune 500 company, but it pays the bills, and more importantly, it's mine. For the last 18 months, Nicole, 28, has been by my side, or so I thought. She was vibrant, funny, and seemed genuinely supportive of my ambitions. When my business started to pick up and the administrative side became overwhelming, she offered to help. With her bookkeeping background, it seemed perfect. I hired her officially as a part-time office manager. It wasn't a huge salary, but it was what I could afford, and she swore it was more about helping me succeed than the money. We moved in together 6 months ago. We talked about the future. It felt real. Last Tuesday, my world imploded. Nicole had been complaining her old laptop was running slow, so I was trying to help her clean it up. I was searching for large, unnecessary files to delete. I searched for the word invoice to see if she had old work documents clogging the drive. What popped up wasn't just files. It was cached message logs from her social media app. The search term was highlighted in dozens of conversations with her best friend, Samantha, 28. My stomach dropped. I clicked one. It was a message from Samantha. Did you handle that new supplier invoice? Easy pickings? I felt a tremor in my hands. This was wrong. I knew it was wrong to keep reading, but I couldn't stop. I scrolled up, and I kept scrolling. The air in the room grew thick and heavy. The initial messages were from nearly a year ago. Samantha, he's so focused on his little company. I bet you could skim a little and he'd never notice. Nicole, lol, maybe. How much you want to bet? The bet was for $500. Samantha bet Nicole couldn't skim $5,000 without me noticing. The chat was a sickening, detailed ledger of their game, over-ordering supplies and returning a portion for cash, creating fake invoices for digital marketing services from a shell company Samantha had set up, skimming from petty cash. They had nicknames for me, the workaholic, Mr. Oblivious. Nicole would describe how she'd console me about tight margins, telling me not to worry, that she had the finances under control, all while methodically bleeding me dry. I didn't feel cold or clear. I felt sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I sat on the cold tile floor for what felt like an hour, my head buzzing, a torrent of rage, heartbreak, and sheer crushing panic washing over me. Every memory of the last 18 months felt tainted. Every I love you, every shared dream was a lie. That night, I barely slept. I lay next to her, flinching every time she moved. My first instinct was to scream, to throw her things out on the lawn. But as the sun came up, a different feeling began to harden in my gut. Rage was a fire that would burn me out. What I needed was ice. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a crime. It was calculated. My response had to be the same. The next 2 days were the worst of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal. I felt like a terrible actor, certain she could see the revulsion in my eyes. I was clumsy, distant. I think she just chalked it up to work stress, which, in a way, was the final insult. While I was gathering my evidence, she was oblivious. I screenshotted everything. I used a data recovery tool to make sure I had the full chat logs. I backed them up to the cloud, to a flash drive, and emailed them to a new, secret email address. I spent an entire night locked in my office, my heart pounding, cross-referencing their chat with my accounting software. The final tally was just shy of $17,000. It was meticulous. I told them I wanted to celebrate. I made up a story about landing a new client and wanting to take them both out to a fancy dinner to thank Nicole for her hard work. They were ecstatic. The dinner was tonight, at a place we could never afford. I watched them order expensive wine, laughing about some inside joke. I felt a tremor in my hand as I lifted my water glass. Just get through it, I told myself. Finally, after the main course, I raised my glass. My voice was tight, but I forced it to be steady. I'd like to make a toast. Nicole beamed at me. To us? No, I said, my eyes locked on hers. To bets, you win. The confusion on their faces was instantaneous. I didn't give it time to fester. I slid my phone across the table, the screen illuminated with the screenshot of their initial bet. The silence was a physical thing. I watched the blood drain from Nicole's face. Samantha leaned in, her jaw slackening. It was real. They knew it was real. Nicole's voice was a choked whisper. Brandon, I can explain. Can you? I asked, the tremor now evident in my voice. Can you explain the $17,000? Can you explain Mr. Oblivious? The panic set in. The tears, the frantic apologies, it was a stupid joke from Samantha. It was all meaningless noise. People at nearby tables were starting to stare. I let them squirm in the wreckage for a full minute. Then, I pulled out my phone again. My thumb was shaking as I found the number for the local police. Nicole saw it and lunged across the table, grabbing my arm. Brandon, what are you doing? Please, don't, we can fix this. I pulled my arm back. No, I said, my voice finally breaking with the weight of it all. You can't. I pressed call. As I told the operator I needed to report a felony theft, I watched the woman I thought I was going to marry collapse into a sobbing heap. The bet was over. Update 1. Thank you for the messages. Honestly, reading them has been an anchor. I haven't really told my family or friends the full, humiliating scope of this, so your support has meant more than you know. The aftermath of that night has been a chaotic, draining mess. The police arrived at the restaurant, and the whole scene was as mortifying as you can imagine. They separated us. I gave my initial statement, and I handed over the flash drive with the spreadsheet and the screenshots. Nicole was hysterical. Samantha, after her initial shock, tried to get indignant, telling the officers this was a lover's quarrel and I was being vindictive. They weren't impressed. They were arrested and taken into custody. They were out on bail within 48 hours. And then the campaign began. Nicole's parents called me, pleading. Her mom cried. Her dad tried to talk man to man, saying she was a good girl who made a foolish mistake. They offered to pay me back immediately, plus extra for my trouble, if I would just drop the charges. I told them, as politely as I could, that this was out of my hands now and in the hands of the DA's office. Samantha's father, who is indeed a lawyer, though not a criminal one, it turns out, has been a nightmare. He didn't call me. He had his firm send a cease and desist letter to my home, accusing me of harassment. He then sent a letter to the DA claiming I had obtained the evidence illegally from Nicole's laptop, and that the whole thing was a fabrication concocted by a jilted and controlling ex-boyfriend to ruin her life. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense public defender who has been a godsend, told me this is standard bluster. They're trying to scare you into backing down. Don't. The worst part has been the personal stuff. Nicole has left me dozens of tearful, rambling voicemails. They're a mix of frantic apologies and bizarre justifications. I saved one where she sobbed. I know it was wrong, but I was just so lonely. The business was all you ever cared about. The bet was just a stupid game Samantha and I played to feel like we were part of it too. I let my lawyer listen to it. He just raised his eyebrows and said, "Keep saving those. They haven't violated the no-contact order directly, but they're walking the line." Samantha has been posting vague, inspirational quotes on social media about surviving toxic people, and the truth always coming out. A couple of their friends, who don't know the whole story, have sent me angry messages telling me to leave Nicole alone. It's exhausting. I've changed the locks on my apartment and the warehouse. I had to tell my employees what happened, which was deeply humiliating, but they've been incredible. My business feels like the only sane thing in my life right now. The legal process is slow and intimidating. I feel like I'm in a constant state of anxiety. This is far from over. Update 2. 6 months. It feels like a lifetime. If you're looking for a story of swift justice, this isn't it. This is a story about the slow, agonizing grind of the legal system. My lawyer warned me this would be a marathon, not a sprint, and he was right. The last few months have been an endless cycle of legal motions and delays. Samantha's father has been funding a vigorous defense. They filed motion after motion to have the evidence suppressed, to question the validity of my accounting, to paint me as an unreliable narrator of my own life. Each motion requires a response from the DA and a hearing, and the court calendar is booked solid. It's a war of attrition. The emotional toll is heavy. There are days I wake up and just wish I'd never made that call, that I'd just taken the loss and tried to move on. The anger has faded into a dull, persistent ache. Nicole and Samantha are still out on bail. Their strategy has become clearer. They are trying to make my life just uncomfortable enough that I'll give up. Last month, one of my key suppliers got a call from a concerned third party who claimed to be a former employee, warning them that my business was under financial investigation and was on the verge of collapse. It was Samantha, of course. Her voice was disguised, but the phrasing she used was eerily similar to things she'd written in their chats. My supplier, thankfully, has known me for years and called me directly. We couldn't prove it was her, but we both knew. It was a clear, desperate attempt to hurt my livelihood. I've had to turn over years of my company's financial records to the defense to prove the theft. Strangers are picking through the business I built from scratch, looking for any discrepancy they can use to discredit me. It feels incredibly invasive. Nicole tried to get the no-contact order amended, claiming she needed to arrange picking up her property from my apartment. My lawyer shut that down hard, arranging for a third-party mover to handle everything. When her things were finally gone, the apartment felt empty, but cleaner. This process is designed to wear you down. And some days it works. But every time I get a smarmy letter from their lawyer or hear about another one of their underhanded tricks, it hardens my resolve. They aren't sorry. They're just angry that their game was called. I have a court date for a pre-trial hearing in 2 months. Maybe then, something will finally happen. Update 3. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. The pre-trial hearing was 2 weeks ago. After more than a year of legal maneuvering, Nicole and Samantha were finally forced to confront the reality that this was not going away. Faced with the mountain of evidence, the chats, my meticulous spreadsheet, the voicemails from Nicole, the sworn affidavit from my supplier about the anonymous call, their positions finally cracked. The DA made it clear they were seeking felony convictions and jail time for both of them. Nicole caved first. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony grand theft. The DA agreed to recommend a lighter sentence in exchange for her full cooperation and testimony against Samantha if needed. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was an employee in a position of trust, and that was a major factor. Samantha, fueled by her father's money and arrogance, held out longer. Her lawyer tried to argue she was just an observer, not a participant. But the evidence of her setting up the shell company for fake invoices and the pattern of harassment, which my lawyer painstakingly documented, was undeniable. The DA was not interested in offering her a lenient deal. Finally, facing a trial she was almost certain to lose, she took a deal as well. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit grand theft. Sentencing was last week. I was there. I read a victim impact statement. I didn't yell or get emotional. I just explained, factually, how this betrayal had impacted my life, my mental health, and the business I had poured my soul into. Nicole was sentenced to 1 year in county jail, with the last 6 months suspended, pending successful completion of 3 years of intensive probation. She will also have to pay restitution. She has a felony conviction that will follow her for the rest of her life. She wept silently when the sentence was read. Samantha, due to her more active role in the conspiracy and the subsequent intimidation attempts, received a tougher sentence. 2 years in state prison. Her father, who was sitting in the front row, seemed to physically shrink. All his money and bluster had only managed to buy his daughter a prison sentence. It's a hollow victory. There's no joy in watching people you once cared about destroy their own lives, but it's a victory nonetheless. The criminal part is over. Final update. It's been almost 3 years since the dinner. Nicole is out of jail and on probation. Samantha served 16 months and was released a few months ago. The criminal case is a memory, but the consequences continue. The civil suit, which my new lawyer filed after the criminal convictions, just concluded last month. Let me be clear, this was not a quick payday. It was another year of grinding legal work. But because they had already been convicted, liability was not in question. It was just a matter of damages. The final judgment was significant. They were ordered jointly and severally to pay the full $16,842 in restitution. On top of that, the judge awarded $60,000 in damages for breach of contract, reputational harm to my business, and the costs I incurred securing my finances. The total judgment is just under $77,000. There were no massive punitive damages. As my lawyer explained, that's rare and hard to collect. There was no lien placed on Samantha's father's house. The law doesn't work that way. The victory here isn't in a giant, unrealistic number, but in the grim, long-term reality of this judgment. Collecting has been, and will continue to be, a battle. It's not a check that arrives in the mail. My lawyer has begun the process of garnishing their wages. Nicole works at a diner. I get a small check every month for a couple of $100s. It's almost nothing, but it's a constant reminder of what she did. Samantha's trust fund was, as her father had structured it, protected from creditors to a large degree. However, any disbursements she takes from it can be garnished. Her credit is destroyed. She can't get a loan. She can't buy a house. This debt will hang over both of them for decades, a financial anchor dragging them down. I've only recovered about $8,000 of the total so far, and it's been a fight for every dollar. But the real win isn't the money. It's that I survived. My business survived. In fact, it has thrived. I have 3 new employees. We're moving into a larger warehouse next quarter. I'm more cautious now, certainly. I have a third-party accounting firm handle all my books. The trust I once gave freely is now earned, and slowly. I am dating someone new. It's been a slow process, learning to be vulnerable again. But she knows my story, and she respects the scars. I don't think about Nicole or Samantha often. They are footnotes in my life story. The justice I got wasn't the clean, cinematic kind. It was gritty, exhausting, and imperfect, but it was real. They placed a bet, played a stupid game, and lost everything that mattered. And I'm still here. I'm still standing. And for me, that's enough.